Imagine, you know, packing whatever you can carry.
Right. Just the absolute basics.
Yeah, exactly. You hear artillery fire echoing over the tree line, so you grab the most essential pieces of your life, you grab your family, and you flee.
It's terrifying to even picture.
It really is. You walk for miles, you navigate these military blockades, and you finally find, like, a patch of safety. And then you try to set up a new life from scratch.
Which is exhausting in itself. I mean, physically and emotionally.
Totally. But now imagine the frontline shift, and you have to do it again.
Oh, man.
And again, like, try to wrap your mind around being forced to repeat that grueling, terrifying process 10, maybe even 24 times.
24 times.
Over the course of 3 decades.
I mean, it creates a psychological state that, well, most of us living in relative safety just cannot even begin to comprehend.
No, man.
The sheer exhaustion of it. The constant gnawing anxiety that the ground beneath your feet is fundamentally temporary.
Exactly. And today, we're looking at how a single stage play attempts the impossible, really. Turning that specific kind of relentless displacement into award-winning art.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is. We're talking about the uprooting of nearly 800,000 people during the Sri Lankan Civil War. And we are taking a deep dive into the source material surrounding the jungle and the sea.
Which is just, I mean, it's completely dominating the cultural conversation right now.
Oh, totally. Especially with this highly anticipated 2026 return season at Sydney's Belvoir St. Theatre.
Yeah, and just to establish the pedigree of what we're actually talking about here, when this play originally premiered, it didn't just get good reviews.
No, it was a phenomenon.
Right? It achieved this rare, sweeping consensus. I mean, at the 2022 Sydney Theatre Awards, it took home Best Main Stage Production, Best New Australian Work, Best Ensemble, and Best Original Score.
Yeah, sweeping the board like that, it means every single cylinder of the production was firing perfectly.
Exactly. It's rare.
So, to understand how co-creators Shakthidharan and Eamon Flack actually pulled this off, we've pulled together a really fascinating stack of sources.
We have some great material today.
Yeah, we were looking at professional critiques from the Colombo Telegraph and the Scoop. We've got background material and program notes from the Melbourne Theatre Company and Belvoir St. Theatre.
Including some incredibly revealing notes from the play's composer, which we'll get into.
Yes, those are amazing. And crucially, we're also going to examine the audience response. Because, you know, a piece of art that deals with a 30-year civil conflict doesn't just sit politely on a stage.
Right, it bleeds out into the real world.
Exactly. And the online comment sections we've reviewed, they show exactly how raw these political debates still are.
They really do. People are very passionate.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this play acts as a companion piece to Shakthidharan and Flack's previous massive hit, Counting and Cracking, and to understand how it tackles the lingering trauma of a fractured nation. Okay, let's unpack this. We really have to start with the inciting incident, the moment the world of the play just breaks.
Yeah. The narrative anchors itself in a very specific, devastating historical reality.
Right.
The play begins by immersing us in the warm, close-knit dynamic of a Tamil family in Sri Lanka.
This feels very safe initially.
It does. But that safety is violently shattered by the deliberate bombing of St. Peter's Church in northern Sri Lanka by the Sri Lankan Air Force.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a localized catastrophe. Civilians are killed, and the patriarch of the family, Shiva, is blinded.
And that blinding of Shiva, it isn't just a physical injury, right? Like, it acts as the catalyst that completely shatters the family unit.
Absolutely. It's the turning point.
From what we're reading in the Belvoir program notes, this creates a profound literal fracture. So Shiva, who is now blind, and his daughter Lakshmi, they manage to escape the country.
They flee the conflict zone entirely.
Right, and they eventually find safety in Australia. But the mother, Gauri, makes this agonizing choice to stay behind in the war-torn north with her other 2 daughters, Abhi and Madhu.
And we really have to examine why she stays, because she isn't just trapped there, she is actively searching.
Right, she has a mission.
Exactly. Gauri is desperately combing through the jungles of northern Sri Lanka, looking for her estranged son, Ahilan.
And he's involved in the fighting, right?
Yes, he has joined the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, the separatist militant organization commonly known as the LTTE, or the Tigers.
So it's essentially this traumatic sliding doors scenario.
That's a great way to put it.
You know, you have one fateful, violent moment at that church, and it forces a single family into 2 wildly different, almost irreconcilable realities.
Yeah, their paths just completely diverge.
And the play uses a dual narrative structure to track these diverging paths.
Yeah.
Does across 3 different time periods. But it primarily anchors in 1995 and 2009. So you've got half the family navigating the brutal, immediate reality of survival in an active combat zone. And then the other half is dealing with the immense guilt, isolation, and alienation of being refugees in a completely foreign, safe country.
It's a huge contrast. And to really grasp the scale of the reality this family represents, we need to look at the historical data provided in the Melbourne Theatre Company's pre-show resources.
Yeah, the numbers are staggering.
They really are. During the Sri Lankan Civil War, approximately 800,000 people were displaced.
I want to just pause on that number for a second. 800,000?
It's massive.
It's one of those statistics that is so massive, so overwhelming that it almost becomes abstract, you know?
Yeah, you lose the individual faces in a number like that.
Exactly. If we don't actively try to picture the logistics of that many people moving, we lose the human element completely.
And that's precisely the challenge the playwrights faced. How do you show that? Because it wasn't just a matter of an orderly evacuation from point A to point B.
Right. It wasn't a one-time move.
No. In the northern Vanni region and the Jaffna Peninsula, human rights organizations documented instances where civilians were uprooted 10 to 24 times.
That's just unbelievable.
Over the course of the conflict. Just constant, forced migration.
Which brings us back to that terrifying scenario we started with. But I have to push back a little on the theatricality of this.
Okay, sure.
If you are a director, how on earth do you stage that?
It's a huge problem.
Right. You can't just have actors picking up prop suitcases and walking in circles for 3 hours. If you try to literally depict 24 grueling migrations on a static stage, doesn't it just become, chaotic?
That is the ultimate staging problem. How do you physicalize chronic instability without losing the audience?
Exactly.
Their solution, which is heavily analyzed in the production notes, was to use a constantly revolving stage.
Ah, okay. So the floor itself is actually moving.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of theatrical design, a revolving stage is a brilliant kinetic metaphor for displacement.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Think about what it does to an actor's body. To stay in one place on a revolving stage, they literally have to keep walking.
Wow.
It physically forces the cast into a state of perpetual motion. It highlights the sheer monotony, the physical exhaustion, and the underlying tension of a life where the ground beneath your feet is never, ever stable.
That is so powerful.
They are caught in a cycle they cannot control.
I can see how that creates a really visceral reaction of the audience. You watch these bodies constantly laboring just to have a normal conversation.
Yeah, the physical toll is right there in front of you.
But it seems like a risky choice, too. And looking at the reviews, it didn't actually work for everyone.
Right, there was some pushback.
Yeah, I want to bring in a specific critique from Liz Baldwin's review in The Scoop.
Ah, yes. I read that one.
She noted that while the rotating stage is a strong conceptual choice, it actually becomes a bit of a victim of its own success. She argued it's overused to the point of becoming a major distraction.
It is the classic dilemma of avant-garde staging, really. At what point does the metaphor overpower the human element?
Right. Baldwin points out that the physical noise of the mechanism and just the constant distracting motion actually siphon the heat out of the tender, quiet, emotional moments in the script.
That's a valid point.
She specifically highlights a scene. It's a dinner conversation between the blinded father, Siva, and his daughter, Lakshmi, who are now in Australia.
Right. They're safe, but they're struggling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have this incredibly delicate, nuanced scene about grief, survival guilt, and trying to connect across a dinner table, and it is actively competing with the mechanics of a spinning floor.
Which raises a really vital question about theatrical capacity, like how much literal turbulence can an audience absorb before they emotionally detach?
Okay, that's a fine line.
If the staging is so busy that you miss the quiet heartbreak in a father's voice, the metaphor has perhaps become too loud.
Too literal, maybe.
Yeah. But what's fascinating is that despite this critique of the physical staging, the narrative structure itself finds a profound way to ground the characters.
How so?
Because when you are surviving that level of constant upheaval, physical grounding is impossible. So what do you lean on?
Oh, I see. You lean on stories. Ancient stories.
Precisely. You find an architecture for your grief and mythology.
And this is where the script reveals its true ambition, I think. It's not just a modern historical docuplay. It is heavily, heavily layered with classical mythology.
Yeah, it's incredibly ambitious.
The creators are weaving Eastern and Western epics together to frame this modern trauma. It gives it this grand, sweeping context.
What's fascinating here is how Shakthidharan and Flack use these ancient texts to give a profound, almost cosmic weight to what could otherwise be viewed as a hyperlocal political conflict.
Right, it elevates it.
Let's examine the primary Eastern connection they use. It's the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata. Within that massive epic, there is the story of Princess Gandhari. And she famously blindfolds herself out of devotion to their husband, who is blind.
Wow. And the play draws a direct, unmistakable parallel to this.
Class, it's very explicit.
Because after Siva is blinded in the church bombing and escapes to Australia, his wife, Gauri, who is still trapped in the war zone in Sri Lanka, she blindfolds herself.
Yes.
She takes a solemn vow not to remove that blindfold until her family is finally reunited.
It's a staggering act. I mean, on one level, it's a demonstration of ultimate devotion.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful.
But on another level, it's a profound metaphor for willful blindness, for attempting to share in the specific trauma of the person you love, even when you are separated by oceans.
Look,
But it also serves a deeply functional narrative purpose on stage.
wait, how so?
Because Gauri is blindfolded during their multiple displacements through the jungle, her daughter Abi has to verbally describe the horrors surrounding them to her mother.
Oh, wow. Okay, so instead of trying to stage a literal battlefield with, like, pyrotechnics and fake blood, the audience is forced to hear the violence.
Exactly. Abi describes the bodies, the burning vehicles, the sheer devastation. It taps directly into the oral tradition of these ancient epics.
That's brilliant.
The horror is constructed in the theater of the mind, which is often far more terrifying than anything you can physically put on a stage.
That is incredibly smart writing.
Yeah.
And they don't just pull from Eastern epics either. The play also reaches into Western classical tragedy.
Right.
Specifically drawing on Sophocles' Antigone.
Yeah.
For our listeners who might need a quick refresher, the core of the Greek myth of Antigone is this massive clash between state law and divine familial duty.
Yeah, it's a classic conflict.
Antigone defies the strict orders of the ruler, Creon, who has decreed that her rebel brother cannot be buried.
Yeah.
So she risks her own life to perform those final burial rites.
And in The Jungle and the Sea, we see this myth map perfectly onto the modern conflict.
How does that play out?
The daughter, Abi, makes a desperate, incredibly dangerous attempt to conduct final rites for her brother, Ahilan.
The LTTE fighter.
Yes, the LTTE fighter. She does this in direct defiance of Sri Lankan government orders that prohibit the mourning or commemoration of the tigers.
Oh, so it's the exact same dilemma. Do you obey the state or do you honor your family?
Exactly.
But I have to ask a critical question here because I think it's important. By taking a very real, very bloody late 20th century civil war and dressing it up in the clothing of ancient Greek and Indian epics, does the play risk romanticizing the reality?
That's the danger, isn't it?
Yeah, like does relying on grand mythical archetypes inadvertently smooth over the gritty, specific political realities of the Sri Lankan conflict?
That is the absolute tightrope the playwrights are walking here.
Yeah, it's tricky.
If you lean too hard into myth, the specific suffering becomes an abstraction. It becomes a fable rather than a history.
Right, and you lose the real people involved.
But if we look at the critical analysis, particularly the review by Anna Parajasingham in the Colombo Telegraph, it becomes clear that the play actually subverts that risk.
Oh, really? How does it do that?
It doesn't shy away from the very specific and sometimes highly uncomfortable socioeconomic realities of this family.
Ah, yes. Let's unpack this lens of privilege, because I think this is one of the most compelling aspects of the source material.
It really is.
Parajasingham's review makes a huge point of highlighting the class dynamics at play. The family at the center of this narrative, Siva in Gauri's family, is not presented as, like, a generalized everyman.
No, not at all.
They are distinctly upper middle class,
Yeah.
they are westernized, they are anglicized, and they even possess social connections to senior Sinhala officials within the Sri Lankan government.
Which is a crucial defining detail for the plot.
Yeah, it changes everything.
It explains the mechanics of their survival. It explains how Shiva and Lashmi have the financial means and the social leverage to find sanctuary in a foreign land like Australia with relative ease. Especially when you compare that to the hundreds of thousands of impoverished citizens who were utterly trapped in the conflict zones with no exit strategy whatsoever.
Exactly. The review notes that while this family is acutely conscious of their Tamil identity, They aren't exactly tuned into the raw, grassroots nationalistic fervor of the mass.
No, they're separated from it by class.
And that socioeconomic insulation totally changes how they experience the violence of the war.
Parajasinghe makes a really sharp analytical distinction here between impersonal and personal violence.
Okay, break that down for me.
So for this privileged upper-middle-class family, the violence inflicted by the oppressor, meaning the government air raids, the artillery shells, the bombings from above, it feels largely impersonal.
Well, it's not targeted at them specifically.
Right. It's indiscriminate. It's a terrifying threat, yes, but it's a threat falling from the sky. It doesn't target their social standing.
Wow, okay. Whereas the violence of the oppressed, the actions of the Tigers, the militant uprising from within their own ethnic group, that feels entirely different to them. It feels up close, immediate, and threatening to their specific, comfortable place in society.
The reviewer asks a very pointed, provocative question. Wasn't it this particular privileged class of Tamils who felt the most threatened by the Tigers' radical actions to empower the deeply marginalized lower caste segments of the Tamil community?
Oh, wow. That completely shatters the idea of a simple good versus evil narrative.
It really does. It injects a heavy dose of class reality right into the myth.
Yeah, it explores how privilege can insulate you from certain types of violence while making you hyper-vulnerable to others.
And what's fascinating here is how the play uses this upper middle class perspective to brilliantly illustrate the unique identity dilemma of the diaspora.
Oh, the scene in Sydney.
Yes. There's a specific scene that the Colombo Telegraph Review singles out that captures this perfectly.
I remember this.
So Lakshmi is in Sydney. She's physically safe, but she hears the noise of a large Tamil diaspora protest happening out on the Australian streets. She has to explain the commotion to her blind father, and she incongruously identifies the protesters merely as Sri Lankans.
Right. She actively chooses to distance herself from the specific radical Tamil liberation aspect of the protest by using the safest, broadest, most acceptable national term.
Exactly. She sanitizes it.
Yeah, she sanitizes it for her own comfort in her new Western home.
She seeks to assimilate, but then later in the play, the script delivers a gut punch.
Oh yeah, this part is crazy.
Lakshmi confesses that she had actually been quietly contributing money to the Tigers.
It's an incredible paradox. On one hand, she wants to be perceived as a peaceful, integrated Sri Lankan in the safety of Sydney, completely distancing herself from the messy, ethnic nationalist masses on the street.
Right.
Yet, in secret, she financially supports the violent rebellion from thousands of miles away.
It's a huge contradiction.
It perfectly encapsulates the guilt, the ideological confusion, and the inherent hypocrisy that can sometimes take root within a privileged diaspora.
That tension between those who manage to leave and those who are forced to stay, between the desire for order and the necessity of rebellion, it doesn't just exist as subtext.
No, it's very textual.
Right. The play brings it center stage in a literal ideological debate.
Which transitions us into the politics of peace. The source material highlights a massive, central clash of ideologies between two characters. A man named Kishan and his son, Himal.
Yes. Kishan is a Sinhala character. He's a longtime friend of the Tamil family.
Okay.
But crucially, he is in a position of authority. He's tasked with implementing the government's strict orders to ban any public commemorations of the dead Tigers.
Wow, that's a tough position.
And his son, Himal, who is married to the Tamil daughter Abi, fiercely and vocally opposes him.
Kishan's argument is fundamentally about the preservation of the state, right? Like, he argues that allowing these public funerals or commemorations will inevitably revive the Tamil liberation movement.
Yes, that's his core belief.
To Kishan, order must be reestablished and maintained at all costs. The cycle of bloodshed has to end, and if that requires silencing the grief of the defeated, well, then that is the price of peace.
But Himal rebukes his father with what I think is one of the most striking, devastating lines in the entire play.
Yeah, tell me.
He describes the state-mandated order as just violence done neatly.
Oh man, violence done neatly. That phrase just stops you in your tracks.
It really does.
It's a chilling way to describe an enforced bureaucratic peace.
Himmel's counter-argument is that you cannot simply pave over a massacre with a mandate for public order.
Right.
Truth, he argues, is the absolute prerequisite for any genuine reconciliation. If the state categorically refuses to acknowledge the truth of the violence, the massacres, and the legitimate grievances of the marginalized, then the peace they are enforcing isn't real.
It's totally fake.
It is an illusion. It is simply a victor's peace.
The winner gets to dictate the terms of the silence. That really seems to be the core thesis of the playwrights.
It is. If we connect this intense real-world friction back to the creators of the play, it highlights a really profound insight from Shakthidharan himself.
What did he say?
In the Belvoir program notes, he explicitly laid out his thematic journey. He wrote that his previous play, Counting and Cracking, was created to honor those who tried to stop the war.
Okay.
But The Jungle and the Sea is different. It is written to honor those who had no choice but to live through it, and to explore the ways they found to uphold their human dignity when everything around them was falling apart.
And what that comment section proves, undeniably, is that the very definition of survival, dignity, and reconciliation remains deeply, painfully contested.
It's still an open wound.
The military war might officially be over, but the narrative battle over what it meant, who is to blame, and how to move forward is still raging.
While these political debates rage in the real world over how to process this grief, the play attempts to offer a different kind of resolution on stage, not through dialogue, but through a constant, unifying sonic presence.
Yes, the music.
Let's look at the score.
And this is where the production design truly elevates the material. Because when we talk about the score for a play, we usually think of it as a background element.
Just something to set the mood.
Exactly. A soundtrack playing over the theater speakers to make a sad scene feel a little sadder. But composer Arjunan Puvendran's original score, which again won a Sydney Theatre Award, it operates on a completely different level.
It's so much more than background noise.
The music isn't just a soundtrack, it is actually a character. In fact, it's the only character that remains on stage from the very beginning of the play to the very end.
It is a phenomenal artistic achievement, and it is deeply rooted in the tradition of Carnatic music.
For those who don't know, what is that exactly?
Carnatic music is a highly complex classical system of music originating from southern India. In his notes for the Melbourne Theatre Company, Puvendran explains that a central defining tenet of Carnatic music is structured improvisation.
So it's not just a pre-recorded track hitting specific time cues, and they aren't just reading sheet music note for note.
Exactly. The score possesses set musical frameworks, specific melodic scales called ragas, and complex rhythmic cycles called thalas. But within those strict frameworks, the musicians are making conceptual, emotional choices live on stage.
That's amazing.
They're acting and reacting in real time.
How does that actually work in practice, though? Like with the actors?
Puvendran says it's loosely analogous to an actor's approach to their role. Think of it like a deeply intuitive form of jazz, but governed by ancient rules.
Oh, I love that comparison.
If an actor delivers a monologue with a sharper edge of anger on a Tuesday night, the musicians feel that energy. The percussionist might strike the drum with a harsher, more erratic rhythm to match the tension in the actor's body.
Wow.
The music responds to the pacing, the breathing, and the physical action differently each night. Sometimes it moves in parallel with the characters' intense emotions, swelling with their grief, and sometimes it offers a stark, haunting counterpoint to the violence.
That level of synergy must be electric to witness live.
Yeah.
And the choice of the specific instruments they use is incredibly intentional, too, from what I read.
Very intentional.
The score relies heavily on two ancient instruments that carry immense cultural weight. The first is the veena, which is a stringed instrument known for its incredibly emotive, deep, resonant sound.
And Puvendran chose the veena for a very specific historical and geographical reason.
Yeah.
The veena is the modern descendant of the yaz, which is an ancient harp. And that harp is tied directly, etymologically and culturally, to the traditional name for the city of Jaffna in northern Sri Lanka, which is Yasphanam.
Oh, wow. So the physical instrument itself is a sonic link to the cultural heartland of the Tamil people.
Exactly.
The exact heartland that is being violently torn apart in the narrative of the play.
Yes, it is the sound of the homeland, persisting even as the physical homeland is destroyed.
That is so poetic.
And the second key instrument anchors the production even further. It is the mridangam.
The mridangam is a double-headed drum, right? Essentially the primary percussion instrument of South Indian classical music.
That's right.
But the meaning behind its name is what really struck me in the research. Mridangam translates from Sanskrit to a body of earth.
A body of earth. Think about what that deeply poetic translation means in the context of a play about 800,000 displaced people.
Oh, I see it. It's the elemental connection to the land itself.
Exactly.
These characters have lost everything. They have lost their homes, their ancestral land, their physical grounding in the world. They are constantly spinning on a revolving stage.
Right. They have no anchor.
And the only thing keeping that connection to the earth alive on stage is the physical beat of an instrument literally named after it.
It is a profound synthesis of musical form and narrative theme. And this incredible sonic landscape is paired with a specific physical language, Bharatanatyam, a classical Indian dance tradition. Ananda Valli, the veteran dancer who plays the mother, Gauri, uses this ancient tradition to express the profound sorrow and loss that words simply cannot convey.
Right, because how do you articulate the pain of a blindfolded mother searching a war zone for her son? You reach a point where dialogue just fails.
Words aren't enough.
And when words fail, her movements, the incredibly specific, evocative hand gestures and facial expressions of Bharatanatyam, they carry the entire emotional weight of the scene.
You can feel how deeply personal this entire artistic endeavor is for the creators. Puvendran, the composer, notes that as a person of Tamil heritage, whose own Sri Lankan parents migrated to Melbourne amidst the escalating civil conflict, performing this music each night isn't just a gig.
It's not just a job for him.
No, it's not just playing a show. He describes it as a deeply emotional responsibility. He talks openly about the immense privilege and the heavy burden of using his musical heritage to imbue this horrific story with dignity.
It elevates the music from mere theatrical accompaniment into an active ritual of cultural preservation and communal mourning.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
So, looking at this massive stack of sources we've gone through, what does this all mean?
Yeah.
Like, why should someone listening to this deep dive care, especially if they are never going to set foot in the Belvoir Saint Theatre?
That's a fair question.
We see that The Jungle and the Sea isn't just a history lesson about a specific island nation. The sweeping awards, the sold-out houses, the intensely emotional reviews. They point to a universal masterclass in how humanity uses art to process the unimaginable.
I'm meticulously weaving the ancient myths of the Mahābhārata and Antigone with the live, breathing traditions of Carnatic music and Bharatanatyam dance. Shakthidharan and Flack have managed to create a monument.
A monument to the trauma of displacement, absolutely. But more importantly, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
Right.
It shows us how people desperately cling to their stories, their music, and their dignity when the physical world around them is literally exploding.
It is, without question, a monumental achievement in modern theater. But looking at all of this, the complex mechanics of the play, the brutal history it depicts, and especially the fierce ongoing debate we saw in those comment sections, it raises a complex question that I think we need to leave our listeners with today.
It's the tension between the art we make and the reality we live in.
Exactly. When a nation goes through a devastating, generation-defining conflict, who actually owns the rights to its history?
Wow, yeah. Who gets to tell the story?
Does distance, like being part of a westernized, financially secure diaspora in Sydney or Melbourne, give artists the safety and the broad perspective needed to create necessary, award-winning monuments to a nation's grief?
Oh.
Or, as the commenter so fiercely suggested, does that artistic distance risk trapping the narrative in a painful, stylized past, while the people still living on that land are desperate to look away from the trauma and focus on the brutal economic realities of the future?
It's a huge dilemma.
Where exactly is the line between vital historical memory and the privilege of looking backward?